When Emily, just 22 years old, stepped into an ordinary taxi on the quiet streets of Washington, D.C., she knew she had only one chance left. She didn't have a phone. She didn't have money. She didn't even have a plan. What she did have was a phrase. Something she had memorized during a safety seminar 2 years ago. Something she never thought she'd need. When she leaned forward and whispered it to the driver, she didn't know if he'd understand, or laugh, or panic. But what happened next would unravel a criminal network that reached into the highest corners of power, and remind the world that sometimes a quiet whisper in a stranger's ear is louder than a scream. The man behind the wheel wasn't a cop, or a soldier, or a spy. Just a father, a cab driver. But that night, he became the hero she didn't know she needed. Raj Mehra's mornings always began the same way. Up at 5:15 a.m., a splash of cold water to the face, a quiet prayer whispered into the steam of his tea, then out the door before the sun was fully awake. His taxi, a 10-year-old white Toyota Camry with a fading checker stripe on the doors, waited for him like an old friend. Its leather was cracked, the meter temperamental, but the engine hummed steady, loyal. On the dashboard, taped next to the radio, was a photo, a girl in scrubs, smiling, holding a stethoscope, his daughter Annika, first year in med school. She was the reason he left Mumbai, the reason he drove 12-hour days through rain, traffic, snow, and fatigue. Every time he dropped off a customer, he'd glance at that photo. It reminded him why he endured. It was a cold evening, not freezing, but the kind of cold that slips into your collar and makes your shoulders rise. Raj had just finished a drop-off near Georgetown when he saw her. A girl on the corner, one arm raised, coat too thin for the wind. She didn't look like she belonged to the night, not because of what she wore, just jeans and a hoodie, but because of the way she stood. Still, tense, like she was listening for something. She got into the back seat without a word, closed the door softly, and gave an address that wasn't familiar to him. Riverside and 4th, she said. The old industrial district. Her voice was quiet, flat. No thanks. No small talk. Raj typed it into his GPS, glanced at her in the mirror, and hesitated. That area wasn't residential. No cafes, no nightlife. Just old warehouses and dark, empty streets. Are you sure? He asked gently. She nodded. Yeah, just... Please drive. They drove in silence. Raj kept checking the rear view. She wasn't fidgeting, wasn't on her phone. She was just still, frozen in a strange way. 10 minutes passed, then 15. At a red light, she finally leaned forward, her voice barely more than a breath. Redbird Alpha 9. Raj blinked. The words meant nothing to him. At first, she sat back immediately, face turned to the window, arms crossed. It could have been gibberish, a random sentence, a code between friends. But something stirred in Raj's memory. 2 years ago, Annika had sent him a video, a clip from a seminar she'd attended on human trafficking and emergency response. She had texted him with it. Dad, watch this. If someone ever says a phrase like this to you, take it seriously. He remembered it now. The instructor had said, "We train survivors and civilians with pre-agreed distress codes. Simple phrases that won't trigger a panic, but if said in a controlled tone, they're a cry for help. The goal is simple. Signal someone who can help without alerting the person watching." His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. He looked in the mirror again. The girl wasn't looking at him. But she had risked something. She had spoken a code. Now it was his turn to make a choice. Raj didn't ask questions. He didn't tell her he understood. He reached quietly to the dash and pressed the manual lock on all 4 doors. The soft click echoed in the silence. He switched off the meter and turned left, away from the route. Emily sat up, her body tensing. "Where are we going?" she whispered, her voice cracking. Not in fear, in disbelief. Raj kept his eyes on the road. "To the FBI field office," he said calmly. There was silence in the car for 3 full blocks. Then she whispered, "You believed me?" Raj didn't turn around. "I have a daughter," he said. "If she whispered for help, I'd pray someone like me was driving." And with that, the night changed. The hunted had found a protector. The code had found its answer. And what began as a silent ride through the city was now a race against time. The streets of Washington blurred past the windows as Raj drove, not recklessly but faster now. His jaw set, eyes scanning each mirror every few seconds. The GPS no longer mattered. He knew the city, and he knew they couldn't afford to stop. In the back seat, Emily was trembling, one hand pressed against her thigh, the other still wrapped tightly around her purse. Raj didn't speak again until the first stretch of silence passed. "You don't have to tell me everything," he said gently. "But if you want to, I'm listening." Emily stared out the window. Her voice, when it came, was barely there. "They said it was modeling. Summer work. Just headshots and a few promo events. They sent a car." Raj nodded slowly, the weight of her story starting to sink into his chest. It was a house, not a studio. Big, quiet, private. 2 men at the gate, 1 inside. They locked up our phones after we signed a fake security form. After that, we weren't allowed to leave. Raj's foot pressed slightly harder on the gas. "I found a landline, pretended to order food, gave the address to a friend. I think that's why they moved me today. They said they were going to relocate us. I ran while they were distracted, hopped a fence, flagged a cab. Yours." She finally looked up at him through the mirror. Her face wasn't crying. It was burning, with shame, with fury, with something deeper. "I memorized the code 2 years ago. A speaker came to our campus. I thought it was dumb at the time. But when I saw your face, I knew if I didn't say something, I'd disappear." Raj's fingers tightened around the wheel. His voice didn't shake. "I'm glad you did." They were 4 blocks from the FBI's field office when Raj noticed it. The SUV, black, tinted windows, clean, unmarked. It had made the same 3 turns as them. Not once, not twice, 4 times. Raj's eyes narrowed. Emily noticed his change in posture. "What is it?" "Back seat," he said calmly. "Driver's side. Don't look, don't move." She stiffened, didn't turn, her lips parted. "That's them." The light ahead turned yellow. Raj ran it. The SUV didn't. That bought them 5 seconds, maybe 10. Raj made a hard right down a narrow alley between a dry cleaner and a row of dumpsters. It was dark, slick with rain. Emily gasped, not in fear but recognition. "You're not just a cab driver, are you?" Raj smiled for the first time that night. "I've been driving in this city for 22 years. I know every back alley, better than my own living room." 10 miles away, inside the Washington FBI field office, the night shift had just begun. Special Agent Nicole Turner, 38, sat at her desk, scrolling through flagged messages from the emergency hotline. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun. Her blazer was draped over the back of her chair. She had seen every kind of case, but the ones that stayed with her always started the same way. A young woman, a quiet signal, someone looking the other way. But tonight was different. An assistant analyst passed her a printed message from a cab dispatch operator who had just fielded a strange call from a driver's brother. There were only 5 words on the sheet. Redbird Alpha 9. Confirmed. Nicole sat up straighter. Her coffee went cold on the desk. She typed something into her laptop. A clearance code. A red window flashed. Priority Tier 1. Emergency signal, verified, live. She stood, grabbed her coat, and hit the hallway running. Back in the cab, Raj grabbed his phone at a red light. He dialed quickly, quietly. "Anil, it's me," he whispered. His brother answered immediately. "Did you say the code? The FBI?" "Yes, they know. Stay on the line. Keep them updated on our location. I think we're being followed." Emily spoke quickly. "There's a covered parking garage near 6th and Marshall. FBI uses it for field drops. I've seen it before." Raj changed lanes. "You trust it?" "Yes." "Then that's where we go." The SUV caught up 2 blocks later. It didn't use sirens. It didn't flash lights. It followed like a shadow. Raj pulled a hard left and ducked into the garage, the wheels screeching slightly as he took the corner. They weaved through the concrete spirals, headlights dim. 2nd level, 3rd, 4th. The SUV entered behind them, tires echoing on the stone. Emily gripped the handle, her breath caught in her throat. Then, blue lights, flooding the upper level. 3 black Suburbans blocked the exit ahead. Armed agents poured out, weapons lowered but ready. The SUV behind them slammed the brakes. Raj stopped the car, turned off the ignition, took one long breath. "You did good," Emily said softly. "So did you," he replied. In the next 60 seconds, the doors opened. Emily stepped into the protection of agents. Raj was escorted aside, not cuffed, not questioned, just gently removed from the chaos. And then the agents surrounded the SUV. The shadows who had followed her across the city, now caught under the brightest lights of all. The air inside the FBI interview room was cold, too cold. Emily sat beneath bright lights, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her hoodie was damp from sweat and mist. A warm blanket draped over her lap, but it didn't help. She wasn't shivering from cold. She was shaking from the memory. Agent Nicole Turner sat across from her, hands folded gently on the table. She didn't speak right away. She let the silence do the asking. Emily exhaled, then nodded once. And then the dam broke. She told them everything. From the moment she responded to the fake modeling job, to the moment the doors locked behind her, to the whispered threats, the hidden cameras, the women too scared to speak, the coded whispers in hallways, the moment she realized this wasn't recruitment. This was trafficking. She described names, accents, a scar on one man's hand. She drew the shape of the house, room by room, and then she told them about the cab, about Raj, the moment she said the code, the second he understood without understanding, and how that small act of belief had changed everything. Nicole didn't take notes. She just listened, then reached across the table and squeezed Emily's hand. "You're safe now," she said softly, "and you're stronger than you know." In a quieter, smaller room, Raj sat on a plain chair, sipping warm chai from a paper cup. Agent Daniel Wu, Nicole's longtime colleague, sat across from him, not interrogating, just trying to understand. You made a sharp call, Daniel said. How'd you know? Raj smiled, not boastfully, just gently. My daughter sent me a video once, he said, about distress codes. It stayed with me. And you didn't second guess it? Raj shrugged. She didn't need me to believe the code. She needed me to believe her. Daniel nodded, then flipped through his notes. You do know that your call set off a federal alert? That SUV was traced back to a front company out of Virginia. We've already flagged 3 more properties connected to it. Raj's eyes widened slightly. I was just driving. Daniel smiled. Not that night. The next 48 hours moved like a controlled storm. 3 more young women were rescued from a gated estate in Maryland. 2 former law enforcement officers were arrested for obstruction. A high-profile real estate mogul, seen regularly on the charity gala circuit, was placed under federal investigation. Fake passports, surveillance footage, digital blacklists, all unearthed. At the center of it all was a handwritten code phrase, Redbird Alpha 9, and a driver's name, Raj Mehra. But Raj didn't ask for recognition, didn't ask for credit, didn't even take the money the agents tried to reimburse him for gas. He asked one thing. Please let me call my daughter, just to tell her she was right to send that video. By the weekend, the news had leaked. Headlines began spinning across screens. Young woman escapes alleged trafficking ring. Thanks to code, taxi driver FBI bust, linked to secret signal used by Survivor Anonymous. Cab driver's intuition sparks federal investigation. But Raj's name was never revealed. Not because the FBI protected it, because Raj asked them not to. I didn't do it for applause, he told Agent Turner. I did it because she was someone's daughter, like mine. Back in his apartment, Raj sat with a cup of ginger tea, the evening news playing in the background. He wasn't watching. He was reading an email from Annika. One sentence made him smile, a tear sliding down his cheek. I've never been more proud to be your daughter. You didn't just save someone, Papa. You reminded people how to listen. Before she left the field office to be relocated and begin trauma recovery with a specialized nonprofit, Emily left behind an envelope. It was addressed to the taxi driver who listened. Inside was a letter, handwritten, folded once. You didn't know me. You didn't know the story or the danger, or even if I was telling the truth. But you believed anyway. And that belief became the road I ran home on. I hope someday I get to meet your daughter, because the man you are tells me everything about the kind of father you've been. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. Emily. And somewhere in the heart of Washington, D.C., a white taxi kept rolling through the streets. No spotlight, no fame, just a father, still listening. 3 weeks after the incident, a quiet initiative was launched under the radar. There were no hashtags, no sponsors, no celebrity narrators. Just 3 words printed on the back of laminated cards distributed to taxi companies, Uber partners, Lyft drivers, and city transit operators. Redbird Alpha 9. If you hear it, listen. If you see her, help. If you doubt, remember this story. The program was part of a pilot initiative, one the FBI had shelved years ago due to lack of usage. But now, it had a face, a name, a heartbeat. It was real. And the face behind it? They never revealed Emily's full name, or Raj's. Only the story. Across cities and towns, posters went up in break rooms. Code words save lives. Every ride could be a lifeline. Pay attention. She may not ask twice. Videos were distributed to driver safety networks, one narrated by Agent Nicole Turner, who now spearheaded the national rollout. She appeared on screen seated at her desk, eyes steady. One cab, one phrase, one decision. That's what stopped a nightmare. We train officers, but sometimes the heroes wear name tags, not badges. If someone whispers, "Don't panic, don't freeze, just believe," that's all they need. Raj never expected the invitation. It arrived by email, then by mail, then by phone. A gentle-voiced woman calling on behalf of the National Human Trafficking Response Summit, held quietly each year at a secure location in Virginia. They wanted him to speak, not because he was eloquent, not because he was famous, because he listened. When Raj stepped onto the stage, his hands shook slightly. He wasn't a speaker. He was a driver, a father. He looked out at a room full of social workers, law enforcement officers, case managers, and survivors. And he said, "I am not here because I did something special. I'm here because someone trusted me enough to speak, and I did what any father would do." He paused, looked down at the photo of Annika he kept in his wallet, then added, "We talk about who saves who, but I'll tell you the truth. That girl saved me too. She reminded me that in a world full of noise, sometimes the softest voice is the most important." After the speech, a woman in her 60s approached him in the hallway. She didn't say her name, just took his hand and said, "My daughter never made it out, but if someone like you had been driving, maybe she would have. Thank you." Raj didn't reply. He just held her hand. A year later, in a private TEDx-style talk held at a women's shelter fundraiser, a woman walked onto a small red stage in a navy blazer and jeans. She looked different now. Stronger, steadier. Her name tag said only, Emily. Survivor. Advocate. Sister. Daughter. Voice. She spoke plainly. "People ask me what saved me. They think it was the FBI or the garage. But it was a look in the rearview mirror. A man who didn't roll his eyes, who didn't ask for details, who just believed me." She smiled gently. "It wasn't the code that saved me. It was that someone was listening for it." The audience rose, silent, reverent, moved. Somewhere in the back, Raj sat, not on stage, not in the spotlight, just quietly watching. Back in D.C., Raj returned to his daily routine. The cab, the tea, the city. But sometimes, in his glove box, he'd keep a stack of the laminated Redbird Alpha 9 cards. He didn't push them on people. But every time a new driver joined the depot, he'd offer one. "Keep it in your wallet," he'd say. "You may never need it. But if you do, you'll be the most important person in the world, for one person." One night, a young girl flagged down his cab near the metro station. She looked tired, distracted, nervous. She climbed in, closed the door, gave an address. As Raj pulled away from the curb, she leaned forward, hesitating, and then whispered, "Redbird Alpha." Raj raised a hand gently. "You're safe now," he said, and the cab kept moving. Through the night, through the fear, toward safety, toward hope, toward a world that was finally listening.